So welcome everybody to tonight's town hall meeting. It was advertised as the last town hall, but technically it's just the last one of the year because I think we've already discussed future town halls going forward for 2020. So I want to welcome you all for coming and thank you all for showing up. In fact, this is my second town hall meeting. I had one when I was first elected, which kind of kick-started the whole process. I'd like to acknowledge the staff that's here. Colin Rushadon's our city manager. I see Commissioner Sachs is in the back there. Members from the UC board are here. We have the neighborhood council back in the center back there, Randy Herman, who's the chairperson, Rob Johnson, who is your Zone 4 representative, and Shai Morris, who's your Zone 4 representative. So you're represented by the neighborhood council here tonight. Also, the Residents Coalition has a little booth back there in the back, so if you want any information about what they're doing and how to join their group, they're back there to talk to you about that. What I wanted to talk to you about tonight was some things that have happened already, some things that we've made progress on, some things that we have budgeted for or in the very near future, and then there's a couple issues towards the end that we want to talk about. In the back of the room, and we can all gather around them at the end of the meeting if you want to look at them, there's a picture of what Zone 4 entails. I'm the Zone Commissioner for Zone 4. My name is Randy Hartman. I have some business cards on the back by the cookies, so if you want to pick one up, you can have all my contact information. But as you can see, there's what Zone 4 actually entails, and then the two maps back here on my right are projects that have been talked about. They've either been brought up to the Planning and Zoning Board, or they've been to technical review, or somebody says, hey, I may want to do this, what do I need to do next? So all of those projects that we're aware of are back there on the two maps on the back right. So we'll be happy, after the meeting's over, if you want to go back there, we can talk about them. I've got an information sheet back there that can tell you where they are in the process, if they've actually been to Planning and Zoning, or they're coming before the commission, or it's just been talked about. So if you want to do that, that's fine. But first off, I'd like to talk about what we as a commission have accomplished so far. The first thing that we did was we've established the moratorium on State Road 44. Now what that did is we stopped all building along State Road 44 until we were able to take a look at it and see what was going on. Did we need to do something better? How could we improve this? And what were our issues? Most of you will know that some of the issues were the clear cutting, the removal of historic trees, whether that was a development issue or was that a utility issue with utility easements and stuff like that. So after we worked some of those issues out, thankfully utilities said, hey, maybe we'll take 25, but we'll allow you to plant trees back as long as we're not responsible for it, which was a great move, I think, on both parties. We were able to get some of the vegetation back along 44. And what we did is we went back and created a new historic tree and a specimen tree ordinance. It got passed a few months ago. So we now have better protection over all of our historic trees and even included specimen trees and what those specimen trees are. It actually lists them by trees, by size, and how we protect them. We reviewed all of our residential projects and have come to the conclusion that we're now going to calculate density by net density. It excludes wetlands and other natural areas. So before, if you had a piece of property, a 1 acre tract, and you were able to put 4 units, or 2 acre tract, and you were able to put 4 units per acre, but you had half of that, 1 acre, was wetlands, you could still put your 8 units on the 1 acre piece of property. But now what we've done is says are now excluding your wetlands. So if you have 2 acres, but 1 acre wetlands, you're only allowed to put 4 units on the remaining acre. So we kind of reduced the density in some of the areas, and we're protecting our wetlands for future generations. Our building department has adopted a new construction management standard to minimize construction impacts around neighborhoods. It requires such things as fencing around. If you disturb more than 1 acre of property, you have to fence it. You fence it, you have to put a shade area or a some kind of a barrier around it, a protection, so it's not seen. A screening. They now have parking requirements. They have to provide parking for all of their construction people. We've included hours of operations. They can't operate 24/7 anymore. They're restricted to hours of operations. And we've also said that if you clear your property and you don't start within a specific time period, you now have to go back and replant so that it eliminates the dust problems. A lot of you from the sugar mill area know about all the dust problems. So we've taken steps going forward on how we're going to mitigate that and are requiring these developers to now go back and replant if they don't start development pretty soon. This year also, thanks to you who approved our bond issue, the Turnbull Creek bond issue, we have purchased 152 acres of development-sensitive land. This land was already scheduled for development. They have already submitted preliminary plans, and through the bond issue, which we're able to raise $15 million, we have now purchased 151 acres of that property to preserve it for conservation land in perpetuity. Yes, that was a very good thing that you, the voters, did. Today was the Turnbull Creek Committee's meeting where they took and looked at all of the other properties that are along the Turnbull Creek and said, our planning department sent out letters to say, you live on the creek, would you be interested in selling your property? Most of them replied back yes or no, or would you be interested in just giving us a conservation easement? So they tabulated all that stuff, and the Turnbull Creek Committee met today to prioritize what lands we felt should be purchased first. And I only was able to be there for part of the meeting, but I think Lisa told me earlier, they were looking at what lands could be developed first, which were the bigger chunks of land, which ones were actually on the creek, so that we could go forward in purchasing those properties to add them to our already existing 152 acres. Now that 152 acres is also attached to Holland Park. How many of you know where Holland Park is? A few of you do. It's up north off of Jungle Road. We completed that a few years ago. It's a lovely park. We were able, through the disc golf group, put in a disc golf field out there through the woods. So if you ever have an interest in playing disc golf, that's a wonderful place to get started. There's actually a 9-hole course out there through the woods. They didn't take any trees down. They just did all the underbrush. They themselves, we helped them with the purchase of the equipment, but they are the ones who actually cleared it, set it up, and they're the ones who are maintaining it. So that was a wonderful asset that we have with them. The other thing that we've done is this last year is we've extended the neighborhood council. We included new members or added more members to that. As I said earlier, Randy is the chairman of the neighborhood council, and we kind of all have a different vision for the neighborhood council. But my vision is that they are the ones who are hopefully will go back and look at the old plans that were established 6 or 8 years ago and say, hey, you've done everything you were supposed to, or hey, maybe you forgot about this and we need to look at this. And then going forward, that will give the citizens an opportunity in their neighborhoods to say, here's a problem in our neighborhood. They can take it to the neighborhood council. They can discuss it amongst themselves and say, hey, oh yeah, we had that problem, and here's what we did. And maybe kind of vet some of these things so that everybody isn't out there on a one-on-one or a small group basis trying to find out how to resolve some of the issues they have. So, and the neighborhood council's taken great steps toward that. There's been a lot of discussion, I think, in the last couple of months about how that's going to go forward. And I commend them for all the hard work that they're doing. Let's talk a little bit about things that we've done here in the historic West Side. We've revamped the tennis courts. They were old, dilapidated, fences were falling down. We completely redid them and added pickleball courts. We have a small group, or that's not actually a small group anymore. There's a large group of people in the city that are avid pickleball players. And so we converted one of those tennis courts into a pickleball court. It's a beautiful court. We've done others, outdoor courts. We even have some indoor courts. So if you're a pickleball player, you can get a hold of one of these members, and I'm sure they can tell you all about the organization and where to do that. If you may not know, starting within a few months, I would imagine, right out that door will be a splash pad. We've approved, it's been budgeted, it's been designed, it's now in the early construction phases of a splash pad for the kids. It's going to be on the back side, on the east side of Babe James, right here behind that wall right there. It's a lovely area, and what we actually did was we invited the kids to say, hey, what do you want to see in this design? You know, do you want palm trees? Do you want waves? Do you want characters, you know, comic book characters or what? Got a consensus from them, and then did an online survey also through the neighborhood and to come up with their original, or the design for this splash pad. So hopefully it will be done. It should be started pretty soon, and should be done by midsummer or late summer at the latest. So that would be a great asset for this zone. Talked about the disc golf. Now, projects that we have in this year's budget that we've already talked about, and they've already been budgeted, they're on the slate, is through our clerk's office, we purchased, and we're trying to implement a state-of-the-art agenda management software that allow public meetings to run more smoothly, streamline staff's internal efficiencies, document better, so that elected officials and policymakers will be more open and available to the public. The idea behind this is, instead of you having to sift through 400 or 500 pages of an agenda, or sit through an entire city council meeting, if you have a specific item that you're interested in, you'll be able to log in and put in splash pad. And that software will take you to where that was discussed during the city commission meeting. So it saves you, the citizens, a considerable amount of time of just searching. It gives us a better reference for documentation and for archiving records and things like that. That's been purchased. We're in the design phase. Hopefully it will come online pretty soon. Back to Pettis Parks, next to the tennis courts is the basketball court. The courts are coming apart, the goals are coming down, fences are, so the CDBG board has approved to renovate the basketball courts to official size. They're going to be to high school size. The ones we have now are just somebody's measurement back when we built them, but we're actually going to make them an official size court. They're going to completely go through them, repave them, redesign them, put up new fencing, and put in new goals and stuff like that. So your CDG board, which is here also, some members, we thank you for that. That was a big asset, I think, to our park area. We've also are in the process of replacing all of the playground equipment in Pettis Park. As you know, with our environment, a lot of things get very rusty. The sun fades them pretty bad, so all of our playground equipment was in need of repair. So we, through the CDGB board, we've purchased that equipment. It's in the process of being laid out and designed. And if you go out there now, the equipment is gone, but it's coming. It'll be here in the near future, I promise you. So we want to thank them for that. We're looking at, we budgeted for several crosswalk areas. If you go down Atlantic, how many of you gone down Atlantic and seen the flashing pedestrian crossways? Okay, those were a great asset. Commissioner Sachs was the kind of started that initiative. He was the one who worked with the county to get that going. We budgeted for 5 more intersections in this year's budget. We are looking at Myrtle and Canal as one of those areas, because that is also a school crossing area. So this will allow our kids to safely cross that intersection. They'll be able to push the button, the lights will start flashing, and it'll be more safety for the kids coming from the middle school up into the neighborhoods. There's also 2 out in the Venetian Bay area along Airport Road. And so those are the three that I know about that are specific to Zone 4. The rest are kind of in the works. We're evaluating where they would better be suited, where the greatest need is going to be for that. But it is in the budget, it's been budgeted, and it's in the process. So those are successful. We also are, excuse me, are in the process of doing a comprehensive plan for Corbin Park and the historic West Side. Now this comprehensive plan is we have a professional engineer. They're looking at stormwater. They're looking at pavement. They're looking at sidewalks. They're going to look at water and sewer and formulate a plan so that we'll have something in the future to work with. So budgeting processes, where we need to go, what infrastructure needs to put in place. And the utilities has also agreed to kind of help us with that and work with us on those issues so that we can better improve the quality of life for our residents, both in Corbin Park and in the historic West Side. My goal is to kind of get rid of some of these mosquito ditches that you see out through here in the West Side. You know, they're just the low-lying ditches that hold water, and with the county, the one being to maintain them, they don't always maintain them properly. So if we can make improvements on that, it would be great. But with that, we also included in this budget another $400,000 for repaving of roadways. Another $75,000, I believe, for sidewalks, which wasn't in last year's budget. Those things are also in this budget and will be coming forward. But the thing I want to point out is if we look at some of the roads in Corbin Park or the West Side, and it says, oh, we should replace this road, but oh, we need to put water lines in first or storm water in first, we don't want to waste our money, spend our money before we need to. So we're going to wait until after that comprehensive plans are completed to kind of look at those areas. DOT currently has 3 projects in the work for State Road 44 that I'm aware of. As you know, State Road 44 is a state-owned highway, so they are the ones who are responsible for maintaining that and for any development on that. We have a little say, but not a whole lot. The first thing that has been in the works or is a planning session planning stages is adaptive signals. For those of you who don't know, all of the traffic signals now are on a timing system. So they're timed to go on for a certain time, and the next one is timed to come on after a few minutes. So they're all set up on a time sequence. What these new traffic lights do will actually can sense traffic flow. So if the traffic light is green, but it senses that there actually is no traffic moving, it will go ahead and change the traffic light. So this is something that's kind of futuristic, I think. I think it will certainly would help traffic flow along State Road 44. It'll get us moving a little quicker because there's only one place in the county now that has that, and I think that's the Speedway Boulevard. So the county's in the process of doing the planning and the studying for that. They've set money aside. There's also, as many of you know, been talk for years about improving the intersection of State Road 44 and Wallace or Old Mission. They did an initial study. We've had meetings with the residents and businesses in the area, kind of have an idea on where that's at, and we're now in the planning stage for that, with future funding being available for that intersection. And the third thing is they are making median improvements at Eddy and Ingram, if you know where those 2 streets are. Eddy is the one that crosses over into the public shopping center. In fact, they're having a meeting here on Thursday night at 5 p.m. to discuss those 2 projects. So if you're or live in that area or are interested in those 2 projects, the medium improvements, then they will be here at 5 o'clock on Thursday night. Two other things that I would like to talk to you about tonight is the census. You all know that the census is going to take place in 2020. They're going to start sometime in March, mid-March, and actively do a census. And there's handouts at the back table about the census if you want to read up more about it. But why is it important to us to accurately have a census? We were one of the last time they did it in 2010, we were one of the low areas for actual completing the census. We didn't get a good census count. Your census count determines your residents, determines how many state representatives you have, how many states legislators, or not state legislators, but federal senators you have. It's important for your legislative body. It's important because it determines your tax dollars. Your state and federal tax dollars are based on census numbers. So if we don't have good documentation or good numbers, it reduces the amount of federal funds and state funds that we're eligible to get to help fund some of these projects that we're looking to do in the future. That's why it's very important to participate in the census project. It's not they're looking for anything suspicious or anything like that. We're just trying to get good numbers for the Census Board for 2020. It will also determine on where your zones will be in the years to come. My zone, which is Zone 4, which is basically everything west of the railroad tracks, has grown tremendously in the last 5 years. So my population has grown probably doubled or tripled. So I would look to see that my zone may be shrinking a little bit. So Jason may be getting more. Or we may move some stuff over from the beach side. We'll have to wait and see. And then the other thing is annexation. We have a 10-year agreement with the County of Volusia for voluntary annexations within the inter-service local boundary agreement. It is not a mandatory annexation. It's strictly voluntary. We were charged, if you wanted to annex from the county into the city, there used to be a fee that you had to pay. There is no more fee. We've waived the fee last year. So going forward for the next 5 or 6 years, there's no fee if you want to annex into the property. Now, why is annexation important? There's a number of reasons. We have a duplication of fire. We have a duplication of police. We have a duplication of sanitation. So our sanitation trucks run twice a week through the neighborhood. The county's runs once a week through the neighborhood. So 3 days during the week, you have these heavy garbage trucks running up and down your streets, destroying our roads, and our traffic issues, safety issues. So if we can reduce some of that in the future, it's going to be beneficial to all of us. In fact, in April, through the agreement, the city has agreed to take over all garbage service going forward. So sometime in April, whether you're a city resident or if you're a county resident who live in this New Smyrna Beach city property or city limits, we will now be taking over your garbage service come sometime April, middle of April, end of April. So we're going to eliminate at least one of those trucks. And everybody will be receiving trash pickup twice a week. Annexation is also important for the census because if you live within the New Smyrna Beach area, but you're a county resident, all of your tax dollars, all of your stormwater dollars, all of your federal and state dollars are going to Volusia County. Yet they have a very little presence here. We are the ones who are providing the service. We're providing the housing, providing road maintenance, we're doing fire police. So it's beneficial to us, it's beneficial to you, because our current tax rate is about $280 cheaper than what it would be if you were a county resident. So it would be a cost savings to you. And especially since we've now waived the annexation fees, it's even a greater cost savings. So if you're interested in annexation, please look at the map in the center of the room back there. You will be able to see your address, where you are. Are you actually a city limit? Live in the city of New Smyrna Beach, or if you're in an unincorporated Volusia County within the ISB area. So there's a flyer back there that kind of explains the whole process of annexation and some of the benefits of annexation. We will not take away any existing property rights you have in the county will remain the same thing. The agreement says whatever the county designation is, whatever the county zoning is, we will annex you and it will remain exactly the same thing, but it will be a city, whatever is closest. If you're R1 in the county, you annex in, we'll annex you into an R1 agriculture or whatever. So the annexation will be exactly this, as close as we can get it from county to city. Okay? That's kind of the highlights of everything I wanted to talk about. So if you have questions, does anybody have some questions? Yes, ma'am.
What about the septic system? We're in the county, I'm on septic system.
You will remain on septic system. If we are, through this study that we're doing, if it's feasible, and we're talking probably 10 years away, if anything, before anybody does anything. And it's feasible to run lines, and we run lines, it's still voluntary. There's no mandatory.
So if I don't volunteer, if you go into the city now, are you going to charge me later to annex in when I'm forced to annex in? Am I going to ever be forced to annex in? Because I don't want to go to the city. I want to stay in the county.
Yeah. There's
Am I going to be forced? Am I going to be charged?
the only way you would be involuntarily annexed is if you were completely surrounded by the city and your property was like in the middle of city property. Then you could be annexed.
What about
Sorry.
charging?
Pardon?
What about charging the homeowners? Are you ever going to charge them
To annex?
annex in?
What we've done is we've waived the fee for the remainder of the ISBA, the Inter-Service Boundary Agreement. So we've waived fees till that ends, which is another 5 or 6 years. So for the next 5 or 6 years, you will not be charged. What happens after that, I can't tell you because it has to be negotiated with the county. This was an agreement that the city and the county came to a few years ago.
I don't think tonight's forum is the place for this, but I was wondering if there's a time or forum that we can discuss about the areas that you have annexed in and owned, and you were talking about fire and police being upgraded, roads, because I don't want to bore everybody with it. They may not live in my area.
Pickup?
But
Go ahead.
there is some big concerns for me, as you know, the city has annexed out on Glencoe Road for over a decade.
Right.
And the county has paved our road twice, but the city hasn't. So I don't want to bore everybody with that, but I think there's some details we need to work there,
Okay.
especially with the crime increase that we've had out there in the last year.
My card is back there by the cookies. Pick up a card, call me.
I'm not here to disturb your meeting, but
I know,
I'm
that's-
a concerned
yeah.
citizen, as I am 6 generations off this fort here in Newsom.
Okay.
So, yeah, we've got some issues.
So give me a call. I'll be glad to talk to you. If you want to talk with the city manager, he'll be happy to talk with you also. We can set up a meeting between all of us.
And
Okay?
even if somebody annexes in, they're still going to keep A1, A2, A3 agriculture